The CIA's mind control project starts in 1950. This was a project that involved $1 billion a year. There was a formal creation of British, Canadian, American cooperation at the highest levels in order to mobilize the behavioral scientists of these three countries in order to kind of crack the code of human consciousness. Dickel and Wolf were medical doctors at Cornell University Medical School in New York City. They got access to some of the more classified material on people that had escaped from the Soviet Union and had been tortured in the Soviet Union.
Wolf was a very well-known neurologist. He had a personal relationship with Allan, the head of the CIA. And with the Human Ecology Fund, Wolf offered to the CIA essentially a front in order to study questions of brainwashing.
What they discovered was one of the two foundational techniques in the CIA doctrine of psychological torture. They discovered self-inflicted pain. What they described in their co-author article was that the most devastating technique that the KGB or the NKVD practiced was not crude physical beatings, but simply making a subject stand immobile for hours and days at a time.
If you force a human being to stay in a certain position, especially a position that puts a little stress on ligaments or muscles or bones, joints, it doesn't take very long for the pain involved to become absolutely excruciating. But nobody's laying a finger on you. You are doing it to yourself.
That was one of the techniques. The other technique they discovered was from the biomedical research. It was Dr. Hab's work. He was the chair of the psychology department at McGill University in Canada.
Students volunteered to participate in this study of human behavior under extreme and prolonged monotony. Their hands and arms were softly covered to muffle the sense of touch. All harsh lights subdued by a mask, comfortable beds, quiet, and yet it was impossible for most of these students to take it for more than 24 or 48 hours.
Sensory deprivation really is a way of producing extreme monotony. It's a horrible experience, getting worse and worse. Some of our subjects talked about cruelty. What they said was that the degree of boredom became intolerable and was, one subject said, as bad as anything that Hitler had ever done to any of his victims.
As we know from almost any basic medical understanding, human contact is what makes us human and enables a person to have a sense of normalcy in their lives. And when they are completely isolated from any human contact and often kept in this sensory isolation, you will literally easily become severely mentally impaired.
Heb then became a paid consultant to the CIA and continued to work for them. He's really the progenitor of modern psychological torture. Then the Wolf Project funded another guy at McGill named Dr. Ewan Cameron. What Ewan Cameron did at Allan Memorial Institute was close to monstrous.
I came in for psychotherapy. I was just crying. It was hopeless. I didn't know what to expect. They said I was going to the psychiatric ward.
You met that man?
That's Cameron. That's Ewan Cameron. Yes, I met him. And we were all terrified of him. Why? We all felt fear. We all had a fear of him. And we didn't want him to notice us because whatever he did, whenever there was a patient with them, the patient was always screaming.
These are the days and hours are the occasions.
Professor Ewan Cameron was a very famous psychiatrist. He was head of the American Psychiatric Association and the World Psychiatric Association. He was the top of the field. At the same time, he seemed pretty much willing to do anything. And for the CIA to find a doctor who didn't have limits in a nearby capital with lots of patients to work with, lots of test subjects, was somebody they were interested in supporting.
Patients would come in with ordinary psychological and emotional problems. They'd sign their waivers, and then they would be subjected to this bizarre version of extreme sensory deprivation, isolation for up to a month. One of his favorite things was he had a sort of a football helmet with a tape recorder in it that would play a tape on loop up to 500,000 times, saying things like, "My mother hates me." And he would blitz the brain with drugs, sensory deprivation, and kind of psychological emotional assault. Well, what's working? I mean, it's garbage.
What he did was he would put people under massive electroshock, and he would give it to them on a prolonged basis, along with what he called sleep therapy. His idea was once you wipe the brain clean, you could wipe out the aberrant behavior, the bad ideas, the ideas that were messing up people's minds, and you could program in other ideas.
Electroconvulsive therapy picked up and was widely used in Germany before it went anywhere else as a way of returning soldiers to war. The German army wasn't going to spend tons of money on psychotherapy for regular soldiers, so they were looking for cheap and effective ways to send soldiers back to war. It then moves into the United States.
The clinical note of March 23rd of 1962 confirms 129 ECTs. Cameron's clinical note of September 12th recommends depatterning and sleep. The clinical notes of October 19th, November 1st, November 3rd, November 8th, November 15th all confirm depatterning at various stages.
My sister noticed that I was supposed to be acting strangely. And my mother decided to have me admitted to the Allan and find out what was wrong. So I went to the Allan a couple of months later, and that's when they started the shock treatments on me. And I was in the Allan for 6 months.
And this would repeat?
Yeah.
Over days and days and weeks and...
Yeah.
Is it what you feel you have been through, being depatterned?
Yes.
I guess you might say. You mean brought into a different world there? Depatterned, what does that mean?
Being erased somehow?
Could be, yeah. Well, they didn't finish the treatments with me, so when I came out, I was still active and so on.
But they did, you went through 3 sessions of depatterning treatments, and when I asked you about things before, you don't remember. Like, I'd say if I ask you what stuff were you typing for the national defense, for instance?
I don't remember that, no.
Or there's certain things in your memory that you just don't remember.
I was first hospitalized. I was about 16 and a half. The doctors pushed me into a sleep therapy, and that was it for about 3 weeks in a sort of a deep sleep. But I don't remember getting up to go to the washroom. I just remember that the doctor came in occasionally to feed me, and that was it. And then shortly after a while, there was another patient that came in, and she was an older one, and she slept in the other bed. When I started to wake up, I saw these patients, and these patients were in tubes. Some of them, they had earphones and headphones. I don't know if they did any of that to me, because with the first 3 weeks, I don't know what happened, but this was depatterning.
You know, there's a lot that my mom went through, and I can't say enough in terms of, you know, had she perhaps not gone through, you know, at the wrong time with the wrong doctor for the events that happened, you know, at the Allan. But it was hard, Mom, because you didn't make a decent living. You never made a decent living. You were on welfare most of your life.
All I can say is that with
there's been,
Cameron, a lot of me was destroyed, but I've managed to attain myself again, back to myself again, all this time, all these years.